I'd like to introduce to you all a very special guest speaker, Conor Buckley. Conor is a staunch activist for sustainability and equality and a past pupil of Blackrock College. And if that wasn't impressive enough, he also played for the Senior Cup team in 1999, winning against Ross Cray in Old Lansdowne Road. In November of 2021, Conor founded We Are the Human Collective, an organisation that's dedicated to the promotion and support of equality through the sustainable production of clothes. For every jumper sold by the organisation, €1 is donated to Sports Against Racism Ireland, LGBT Ireland, and the Irish Youth Foundation. So now, please join me in welcoming Conor Buckley.
Thanks, Aran. Thank you.
So, Conor, how are you feeling?
Well, it's great to be back. I had so many great memories here. Seeing Father Nash and Father Brillicon as well. Haven't changed a bit. So, yeah, great times here. This room's changed a little bit. But, I love being back here. It's some, as I said, best moments of my life here.
So, Conor, your background is filled with tireless campaigning and activism. How have these experiences shaped your view of life? When I say activist, I guess you're being quite flattering. My mum was an incredible lady and an activist and an amazing role model to have. So her name is Ishaan Pandey, and she would have campaigned for victims of institutional abuse. And she taught me some great lessons. And it wasn't just about her life, but in general about having empathy. And empathy, Senan mentioned the power of words. She would talk to me even as a young boy, she would talk to me about helping people and what we could do for others, and how I remember this one story I was telling you earlier, Aran, that I remember at Christmas time and there was a lot of people in the house, and being a 10 or 11-year-old, probably a bit spoiled, I said, why does there have to be so many people in the house? It's Christmas, why can't it just be the family? My mum turned around and said, these people don't have families and they don't have homes to go to. And it was a great lesson to probably teach a child who was probably a bit entitled, and she'd always talk about her tough times growing up in an orphanage, and that was a real leveler for me, and it really grounded me. And she went on to win Woman of Ireland, European Volunteer of the Year. She went on to, create a centre for victims of institutional abuse. And she had great moments where, on Taoiseach's birthday, her and apologised to the nation for what happened in those orphanages. And Judge Ryan vindicated her and over 100,000 children. So it was great moments in her life, and to see those 30 years of battling come true, and to get that vindication was huge for her. So obviously your mum was a massive inspiration for you in your life. What was the inspiration behind the founding of We Are Human Collective?
Well, I'll ask the audience a question actually here. Does anyone remember? So in 2020, we had the first lockdown around Paddy's Day, March 2020. And then 2 months later, on the 25th of May 2020, a man was murdered in America. Tough question, if anyone can remember. The 25th of May 2020. It was a man named... Spot on, well done. So George Floyd was murdered, and that day I rang my brother, who was also in this school, and I said to him, "Do you see what happened?" And he was really upset. And he wasn't that type of person. I'm a bit more emotional than Dara. And he, for example, I would have got a lot of counselling when my mum passed away, and he would have been like, no, it's grand. And he said, I'm going for counselling about this. So I started reaching out to a lot of people in the black community. One guy that was in school with me, I hadn't seen him in years, Martin O'Lima, and we started talking about, different experiences. And I started reaching out to loads of different people, and I started attending some of the marches. And I realised that, first of all, it was great to see the world come together and show empathy for community. And I thought what was amazing about the march was, I'd say that 80% of the people at the march were white, and I think that's what needs to happen to change things. You need that support from community, because minority communities, they can't do it all on their own, because a lot of the time they're traumatized or they don't have that strength. So it's when other people support them, whether it's the LGBTQ plus community or whatever it is,
that's what makes a change, you know. So a lot of our team would go to the pride marches, would go to support other minority events in order to support those communities, and that was a real changing point for me. And I started watching this amazing lady called Jane Elliott in America. Jane's probably 90 years of age now, and she had this jumper on saying there's only one race, the human race. And if you think about that, sometimes when we divide ourselves into different races, you divide people up, and I felt that was quite powerful. I'd always describe myself as mixed race, where, you know, I was mixed heritage, but there's only one race, the human race, and I thought it was a really important point. And again, Senna mentioned the power of words. These words on the jumper really hit home for me, but I realised that you know, not everyone would feel appropriate or feel comfortable wearing something like that. So I wanted to create something that was that could have a symbolism, but more of a subtlety. And again, I wanted people to feel really comfortable wearing it, but also wearing what they believed. So that was the real inspiration behind the Human Collective.
So then, obviously, with equality, your logo is an equal sign. So, as well as the equality aspect of the clothing, you also look at sustainability and the climate side of the clothing as well.
Yeah, Aaron, I think that, to be honest with you, I was never an expert, and I'm not going to sit here and preach about sustainability that was something that I was unbelievably passionate about. But one thing is that when you start talking about humanity and you start looking at clothes and how they're produced, and you know our workers getting paid a fair wage, I started going on that journey and learning more and more. So since that, I couldn't talk about the Human Collective and neglect that part of the business. So you know, I started working with manufacturers who had the highest level of certification, that were making sure the factories were certified, that people were getting a fair wage, that there were correct working conditions. So that came in part. But what's quite interesting is once you go on this type of journey, you're likely to make bigger changes in the future. So, for example, I might have just thinking recently, a car company reached out to me to gift me a car, which is really kind of them. And it was a diesel car. And I thought, like, I can't accept this because I can't be doing videos online about Human Collective driving a diesel car. So I had to decline it. My wife was like, what? You don't say no to a car. But Volvo actually reached out to us and supported us on that with an electric car. But everything that we do, whether it's putting plastic, recycling, whether it's not using plastic at all, everything we do now, there's a mindset shift there, which is really interesting. And that change, it's affected my wife, it's affected my wider family as well. And it's really interesting how one step leads to bigger changes in the future.
So obviously you then mentioned electric vehicles, diesel vehicles as well, but more so the companies offering you the partnerships. How have companies responded to, say, proposals you've brought to them or they've brought to you?
Yeah, so at the very start of it, I was just telling your lovely principal there I met for the first time, Yvonne, I was telling her that we never planned to do the talks. What we wanted to do was do anti-discrimination workshops. Sorry, a lady asked me to do an anti-discrimination workshop in a disadvantaged school in the inner city. And we did it, and it was brilliant. And we brought in Philly McMahon, who's like a GAA Dubs legend. He's won 8 All-Irelands. And he had a really amazing story about living in Ballymun and his brother going through, he lost his brother through heroin. And I thought it was really powerful. And the way we did it is we set up these 5-a-side football tournaments. And I'm trying to cut a long story short, but basically what we did is we took the captains aside and talked to them about leadership, where we told the rest of the players not to pass to the captains. And we started the game back up. And at half-time, we asked the captains, how are you feeling? And they were raging because no one was passing to them. And we were trying to explain to them about that's what happens when you don't include people, and we're all about trying to be inclusive. And it was a nice way to teach people without having like projectors and charts and that type of stuff. So that was the first part of what we just wanted to do. We started working with SARI, Sports Against Racism, on that. And we worked with them in an event last year. They had 600 children from all around Ireland, a lot of multicultural children there. It was an amazing event. So that's what we really want to do. But then companies started reaching out to us. And because we had disability activists on our team, LGBT activists on our team, and because I think my mum's story was quite powerful, we ended up doing a lot of those talks. But originally, that wasn't really the plan. But it was great to see other companies supporting us. And, there's a bit of, I guess, people talk about rainbow washing and people talk about companies just doing these things for the sake of it. But I'm just glad to see companies doing something
So if a company's going to be sustainable and they're going to talk about it, wasn't it brilliant that they're being sustainable? If a company's going to be supporting the Pride March, isn't it great that they're doing something, even if it's just a flag? So again, it comes back to everyone's on their journey, and some people are a little bit further on than others. Like what I remember reading about this brilliant social psychologist called Robert Cialdini, and he talks about the science of influence. And he did this experiment in America where there was over 100 houses in America in this particular neighborhood, and driving safely was a real problem for them. And of course, everyone agrees to drive safely, but not everyone does it. So he went around door to door and he said, would you mind erecting this big sign in your driveway saying drive safely? And all the houses in the neighborhood said no. They didn't want a big ugly sign in their driveway saying drive safely. So he went to a similar neighborhood down the road and he said, driving safely is really important, there's been accidents, would you mind putting a small postcard in your window saying drive safely? And everyone agreed to do it. And you can understand if someone calls to your door with a big ugly sign or a small postcard, you're more likely to do a small postcard. So we went back to the neighborhood, agreed to put the small postcard in the window. And he said, now that you've agreed to put the small postcard in your window, would you mind putting this ugly sign, would you mind putting this drive safely sign in your driveway? And 40% of people agreed to do it. So why did 40% of people agree to do it in one neighborhood and 0 in the other? Because they'd already made a small commitment. So our whole idea was that, okay, if people are wearing a Human Collective jumper or t-shirt that talks about equality, then why would they come out with sexist, racist, homophobic language? Because it goes against what they're wearing. And people have this thing called cognitive dissonance. And that's when their actions and behaviors don't match. And humans don't like that. We like to be consistent with our behaviors and thoughts. So that was our whole idea, that we'd get people to wear the clothing. And we've had people that wear in Stephen's Green, and people just buy it sometimes because they like the colours or the comfort or they be passionate about sustainability. And then they realise, oh wow, this message is about equality. And the science would tell us that because of that they're less likely to say those type of terms, but they're also more conscious of it. And there's an awareness piece which is really important.
Then I guess we have to mention here as well, there's a lot of probably aspiring entrepreneurs in the room. Do you have any suggestions or advice that you could give them for moving from the idea stage to being where you are now on this sort of
Great
stage?
question, Aran, and apologies because Aran has a couple of questions, but I've answered a lot of the answers in them, so well done, you're doing a great job emceeing. Yeah, I think it's so exciting, by the way. Like the talent, I remember, like the amount of talent that's in every year in Blackrock is so exciting. And so many of my friends have gone on to do different things. And I've seen so many people that have done brilliant things that were younger than me in Blackrock. And it's brilliant to see. But the biggest thing I would say is ask yourself if you're ready to make a sacrifice. Because it's very difficult to get something off the ground without putting in the additional hours, the weekends, the late nights. And, you know, you hear those things, but it really is true. And the other thing I'd say is get to experience lots of industries and don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I remember I was in Willow, and there was a teacher in Willow who's passed away now, a good character. I won't say his name now, but he was a really good character. He used to run a summer camp down in Stradbrook. And I did the summer camp. And the next week he said to me, I was 12 or 13 at the time, he said, I want you to work here. And, you know, I said to my mum, Jesus, okay, if I'm 12 or 13, I'm going to get a job. I was getting paid £50 a week. This is the 90s now. And my mum said, definitely take that job. And I said, well, you know, I just worked it out. By the time I pay for my bus fare and pay for lunch there, I won't make any money. She goes, well, you're going to make your lunch at home and you're going to cycle there. And we were living towards Dundrum. So it's a decent enough cycle to Blackrock or whatever. And I was 13, and it was the best thing ever. And he was a tough taskmaster, this guy, but he was a really good character. And I remember the first week, he left me like £20 short, which was a big deal. And I was walking back, I was jumping on my bike, and I was cycling off, and I said, I better check this money. And I looked at it, I went, oh God, he's left me £20 short. And what do I do here? Do I say it to my mum, or do I stand up for myself? Because if I let this happen, I'm going to let this happen right throughout my life. So I went back and I said, Mr. You left me £20 short. And he's like, I couldn't have. And I said, no, you definitely did. Like, I just opened it there. So he gave me the £20 anyway. And the next week, then he left me £5 short. I said, I can't go back. and I can't go back. And I started walking out. I think I was walking home that day. I said, I just can't go back. Like, he's just not going to believe me. And he's as I said, he's a bit of a character, so he'd make a bit of a drama about this. So I decided, no, if I let this happen to me now, it's going to happen to me throughout life. So I went back, and he was like, there's no way that happened or whatever. And he gave me the £5, and I subsequently knew this is what he did with people. Now, we had a great relationship. I worked with him for 10 years. And that's a long time because, maybe 8 or 9 years. And it was a brilliant experience. So I would say to people, I think it's illegal to work under 15 now. I was under 16. But what I'd say to people is try and experience those things. Put yourself out there and challenge yourself. And you won't know if you enjoy something until you do. So whether it's working in a restaurant or whatever it is, pick up plates, or it's working in if you want to have your own cafe. I'd ask anyone. I'd even, recently a lady approached me, and she's in her 30s, and she said, are you hiring? Oh, sorry, she wanted to leave her job. And my friend said, I need to find a company that has a real purpose behind it. And she mentioned your company. So I'd love to meet you. And I'd meet up with anyone. I'd give, because people have been so good to me with giving their time. And I sat down with her, and she said, are you hiring at the moment? I said, look, we're working on a pretty tight budget. We're not. But if something comes up, I'd love to. And she said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to work for you for free for 2 weeks. Now, this is a lady in her mid-30s. Doesn't need to. She's been on 100 grand before in a previous role. And if you like it, great. And if you don't, no problem at all. It'd be great working with you. And I said, I don't want you to do it. I don't want you to work for free. I couldn't ask you to do that. I couldn't. She goes, honestly, I'm happy to jump in there. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do videography. I'm going to do photography. I'm going to help you out with your marketing. I'm going to look at your digital marketing ads. I'd love to do it. And she said, give me a complimentary jumper and that will keep me happy. And since then, now I'm begging her to go full time. She can only do 3 days a week because she also has a videography business. And what an amazing person to do that, where she wasn't expecting the world to land on her. There was no sense of entitlement there. She wasn't expecting a big salary or everything to be handed to her. She said, I'm going to prove myself. And I think there's something in that as well, And you will get people who take advantage. Now, right now, I said I'd love to have her 5 days a week, and she's working with us. And I actually asked her at the end, going, "What are you happy with payment-wise?" We'll do that. We'll do that. But I think there's something in putting yourself out there. And if someone takes advantage of you, that's poor on them. But at least in a way what you have in yourself. You've put the hard work in. And I have been in positions where I worked for a company before. I worked in a hospitality business, and the guy said to me, listen, the budget's changed. It was the Dean Hotel, if anyone's familiar with the Dean Hotel. And there was meant to be a nightclub on the roof of the Dean Hotel at one stage. Father Nash has been in a few times. And at the last minute, he said, look, we're changing the look of the rooftop. It's going to be a restaurant called Sophie's. And I can't get you involved in it because there's not going to be the same revenue that we expected. And I said, no problem. This guy had been really good to me. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to work anyway and see if there's something opens up, great. And we worked for free, me and a friend of mine, in our 30s, for a couple of weeks during this crucial time when it opened. And we did everything. We cleaned the toilets. We mopped the floors. We brought in really big corporate business. Lots of the corporate clients that brought in booked out the venue for weeks and months in advance. So he was able to take in deposits so he could see all these financial rewards coming in. And he turned around and he said, I'm going to give you a commission of the beverage that comes in here. I can't give you any of the food because the margins are too tight, but I'm going to make this work for you. And I thought, again, it was great that he rewarded me on it. But I thought, you know what? Even if he'd said, no, I can't do it at the end, at least me and my friend knew that we were able to work the 10 hours a day. And you know what? If he'd said no, maybe I could have set up my own venue because I knew what was in me. So what I encourage people to do is, expose yourself to those working environments and you'll see what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. And it will build resilience in you no matter what. And that resilience you can take into future businesses because what I'm doing now is really tough. But at least I know what I've done in the past will stand to me. And some of my friends who were in Blackrock and were given credit cards at the age of 18 and really good people, but they expected themselves to have a car or an apartment or a house because they were given everything when they were younger. And I was really lucky in a sense. I think it was a gift. My folks never gave me pocket money. They said, well, if you want to get a can of Coke, how are you going to pay for it? You want to get a football magazine, how are you going to pay for it? What a great way you have to think about, how am I going to get the money for this? my parents that put me into Blackrock, there was so many sacrifices they made. Did the beg, borrow, and steal probably to get me in there. Like I know they did get a loan from a friend, a loan from my dad's mum. You know, my granny had to pay. You know, and they could have put it towards a holiday or maybe an extension on the house or something like that, but they didn't. And I had a granddad in Nigeria, and he knew the Holy Ghost well, and I think she used to send him the fees and go, here, listen, will you pay? And he didn't. But it was a brilliant upbringing, because I didn't expect anything to happen for me. If I wanted something to happen, go out there and try and make it happen yourself. And my friend, one friend in particular who was given that credit card, he's 42 and he's unemployed because every job is below him, because he never did the tough jobs as a kid. So he never did the soccer camps. He never did cleaning the toilets. He never did that work. And now he's looking at himself going, well, I can't start down there. And he's expecting to be CEO of some business when he's never done the hard yards.
So we've obviously talked about a lot of different messages now. What would you say is the key message you want to give to secondary school students?
Well, I did enjoy it. And do you know what the big thing is as well? Just because in some things in school, so Blackrock gives you this amazing feeling that the sky is the limit. I'll never forget coming into Willow in first year. And I was in a really good national school. But the confidence in the room was incredible. Teachers and the priests believing in me. I remember playing a rugby match and Father Brillicon on the sideline and saying to me, we were losing, and Father Brillicon going, Bucko, Bucko. And I remember thinking, is that Father Brillicon? I looked over and he goes, we need you to score a try. So the belief the school gave me was incredible. And that's an amazing thing, the confidence. But also to know that if you're struggling at something, that it's okay. So lots of people that I know that struggled in Blackrock did really well after school. Because they were good people. They were nice and they were hardworking. And they mightn't have, like I know some of them would have struggled with the Leaving Cert, would have got maybe, C's and D's. But they've got really great jobs now. So if you are having a tough time at the moment, that there's life after school. There really is life after school. There's people have achieved great things after school. And what I do really love about Blackrock, and a lot of people turn around to me and go, would you put I've 3 under 3.5 at the moment. And they'd say, would you put your child in the Blackrock? And I go, please God, financially, please God, if you could. And then secondly, someone said to me, oh, what happens if he's not into rugby or anything? You were really into rugby. I said, there's something for everyone in Blackrock. And to find that, whether it's golf or it's chess or table tennis, there's so many brilliant activities, the opera. And Blackrock supports you on that. That's the great thing, I remember my brother was he was really unusual. He was into hip hop dancing, which was definitely unusual in the 90s. And my mum called into Father Brillicon. There used to be these things called special awards. I don't know if you still have them at the end of the year in the Jubilee Hall. And she said, I think he needs to get, and it was for athletics, and it was for academics, and it was for rugby. And she called into him and she said, Dara's struggling with confidence. I think he needs an award. And the school supported him on it, So I think there's something for everyone in Blackrock. And I think that's a bit of a misconception if you're not in Blackrock as well.
So obviously you've discussed several of your memories. We have a little photo from back at the final, if it'll come up, that is. Ooh.
Oh, well.
Oh, there you go.
Let's see this. I might have been seeing this before. Oh, I have.
So that's from Old Lansdowne Road, the final against Rosscray, where 16,000 people were watching the final. Oh yeah. So what do you remember from your days here that you would like to share with everyone?
I don't know how much time you have, because I love that period so much. And again, if you think about that year, we were the first team to give up alcohol for the entire year. And Alan McGinty, who was the principal, obviously for years, and was our coach, and we're the only team that he won the SET with. We weren't a great team, by the way. We didn't have any superstars. 2 years ahead of us was Brian O'Driscoll and Kieran Scally. They were incredible. And they didn't win the cup, and they were incredible. But we had was Mr. Alan McGinty. He brought us together, and he made us, first of all, we made the sacrifice. So he used to talk about the other schools that were drinking. He goes, you haven't done that. And it really stuck with us. He goes, you've made this sacrifice. And then we did the Christmas training, and he talked about the sacrifices we made. And the other thing, which was I think when I look back on it, was he was really critical. So, he'd have a video up there, and he would say to you, you could be over the other side of the pitch, and the ball wouldn't even be there, and he'd pause and he'd go,
Buckley, what the hell were you doing? What the hell were you thinking there? You should be in this position. And the constructive criticism we got was really, again, about resilience. It was really good for us because we were treated like adults. You know, it was nearly a professional environment. And there was, you know, he pulled no punches there, like he was really hard on us, but we would not have won that cup. And I wrote him a letter about 6 years ago because I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't sleep and I was thinking about it. And I wrote him a letter to say, thanks a million, firstly. I never said thank you because I know we wouldn't have won the cup without any other coach. And the other thing was the characters that he fostered this unbelievable spirit, so much so that we're still really close. And the other thing that he did was he was against this whole kind of Ross O'Carroll, Kelly, Blackrock image, which was good. He wasn't into that. So like he'd say to us, if you're going to go to a match to watch a game, I don't want you standing around there thinking you're Blackrock, thinking you're great, and you know, look at all the Mount Gamble girls looking at me or all this type of stuff. I want you to separate. And he was really against that type of arrogance. So he really bred in that humility, which was really important. So I love the period, and I think that moment there when we won that final, I would love to say that it was 20 years ago and who cares, but it did mean, 22 years, it did mean a huge amount to me. Like it did, and it still does. And it's great to see the friends that were fostered from it, you know. And I said we weren't a great team, but we were so well prepared, we were so committed, and I honestly think hard work beats talent there, because I think there's two other schools that were really talented that year, and we beat one of them. And I honestly think it was to do with the hard work, the graft.
Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thanks so much.
I hope you enjoyed it as much as we have.
I really have.
So,
thank you.
Thank you very much
Thanks,
for coming.
Aran. Cheers. Thanks a million. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you.